Among Nintendo's many IPs, few could be considered more forgotten than F-Zero, Nintendo's hardcore fast-racing franchise that unfortunately hasn't seen a new game since 2004. It's rather ironic, especially given Captain Falcon's popularity thanks to the Super Smash Bros. Franchise, that this series simply has been left to sit in the dust aside from cameos in games like Mario Kart and Nintendo Land. So what exactly has been holding F-Zero back? And if Nintendo was to make a new one today, just how should they go about it? Well, we're going to talk about that in this video. Let's start by taking an overall look at the history of the franchise. F-Zero was originally released on the Super Nintendo in the year 1990. In some ways, it was believed that Captain Falcon would be the mascot of the Super Nintendo. And in regards to overall sales for a new IP, the game did pretty darn well, 2.85 million sales. For comparison's sake, that's almost exactly the amount of Super Metroid and Kirby Superstar combined. Moving into the next generation, we have F-Zero X for the Nintendo 64, released 8 years later in 1998. In sharp contrast, this one only managed to ship 1.1 million units, obviously marking a huge step down from previous sales figures on the old console. Following this, a Game Boy Advance game in 2001, F-Zero Maximum Velocity. This title ships just short of the previous game at 1.05 million units, but it's worth noting that development costs for the Game Boy Advance are significantly lower, so this could be considered a moderate success. Following in 2003 is considered to be the magnum opus of the F-Zero franchise, F-Zero GX, released for the GameCube. F-Zero GX managed to ship 1.5 million units around the world, marking both a step up back in the right direction and an overall success for the IP. Alongside F-Zero GX was the arcade title F-Zero AX, also developed by the same teams. In the same year, F-Zero also received an anime, which would then be followed up by a Game Boy Advance title. Released in 2003, F-Zero GP Legend is a monumental failure, which, combined with its immediate sequel, F-Zero Climax, which was only released in Japan, together failed to even break 500,000 in sales. Since then, no formal F-Zero titles have been released, and though many fans have cried out asking for a new title, veteran Nintendo game designer Shigeru Miyamoto has gone on record to say that there's simply no reason to make a new one. During an interview in 2012, Miyamoto was told about fans' interest in the game, and responded by saying, "I thought people had grown weary of it," followed by, "I'd like to ask those people, why F-Zero? What do you want that we haven't done before?" And so, with that brief synopsis of the history of F-Zero, we're pretty much all caught up to present day. So that leads into the question, what do you want that we haven't done before? I'd like to use the rest of this video to answer that very question. First, to really understand where I'm going to go with my idea, we first have to talk about what the core elements of F-Zero really are. F-Zero is, of course, a racing game, but it's a lot more than that. F-Zero has been mostly defined by two significant things. The first is high speed, and the second is danger. Namely, the danger imposed by those high speeds and the other racers on the track. Ever since its inception, F-Zero's always been about trying to get to the end of the finish line, not just first, but in one piece. Fans of Mario Kart are no strangers to the idea of being hit by a red shell, or slipping over a banana, or even riding off the side of the track. But we always know at the end of the day, after a brief spin out or being picked up by the Lakitu, you're just going to get dropped right back in the middle and beyond your merry way. It's in this distinction where we find what sets F-Zero apart. The F-Zero racers are known for their over-the-top brutality. Even in the original Super Smash Bros. Melee opening, you could see Samurai Goro being run off the track by Captain Falcon. While Mario Kart players could expect to be returned to the track moments later, in F-Zero, that sort of thing means game over. If your racer somehow manages to go flying off the track or gets destroyed somewhere along the way, you're out of the race. It's in balancing this high level of risk and reward in gameplay that makes F-Zero so unique and fun, and it's a formula that's been imitated by many other franchises following it. Balancing the act of driving along a treacherous racetrack while also keeping in mind what your competitors are up to is a huge part of what makes F-Zero what it is, and having to figure out whether it's time to go on the offensive, be a little bit more conservative, or simply desperately keeping an eye out for when the next chance to recharge your vehicle's energy is going to come up. You're constantly going to be making snap decisions, all while moving at breakneck speeds. Now, everything I just described is traditional F-Zero in a nutshell. I have not deviated in any way from the traditional formula, and that's exactly how I want it to stay. So when Miyamoto asks us, what do you want that we haven't done before? My answer comes from combining classic traditional F-Zero gameplay with the modern day gaming trend that has always been what F-Zero is all about. multiplayer battle royales. In the last couple of years, the game industry has seen a huge wave of battle royale style games. These are games in which up to 100 players at a time all join in the same match and compete to be the last one standing. While there have been a number of different variations on this formula over the last couple of years, for FZero this might be exactly what the franchise needs to slide back into the race. In FZero GX, the Grand Prix has 30 racers, including the player character, but what if instead of CPUs, all 30 of them were real living, breathing people? While most see the Battle Royale trend as nothing more than a quick cash-in, in the case of FZero, this is 100% in line with the series' values from the very beginning. In fact, it may be one of the original Battle Royales in the video game world. Across the world right now, the Nintendo Switch has a pretty significant install base. Over 59 million consoles have been sold worldwide. Taking a look at the success of a brand new IP, ARMS, we can see that Nintendo Switch owners are pretty open to the idea of taking a risk. Within a year and a half of the game's launch in 2017, it managed to sell over 2 million copies. On the flip side, the best-selling Nintendo Switch game happens to be a racing game, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which currently has sold almost 25 million copies since its release in April of 2017. Now, as far as how the game itself could actually function, I do believe the Battle Royale approach is 100% what Nintendo should commit to with this new FZero title. Mainly because it's a very vastly appealing genre for all sorts of gamers everywhere, and would also be a refreshing spin on the classic series, managing to give it something new without compromising what it was always about in the first place. There's no need to add things like items to the track. It's already treacherous enough that players will have plenty of difficulty getting around in one piece. And to keep things fresh, throw in a traditional currency system that allows players to buy new custom parts with their winnings from the tournaments. They did the same thing with ARMS, unlocking new arms for your characters by using in-game coins. This simple positive feedback loop keeps players coming back for more. Unlike the generations of old, Nintendo has an amazing opportunity on their hands thanks to the way they've handled digital distribution. Giving players a short opportunity to try out their new game for free, such as with the ARMS Test Punch, has proven time and again to be a very successful tool for getting the games in players' hands on their own time, while also introducing them to something they might fall in love with. And with the nature of Nintendo Direct and just how ravenous fans are for something new related to FZero, well, there couldn't be a better opportunity waiting. Now, with all of this said, there's a single final element that I think has primed FZero for the perfect opportunity to have its revival. This single factor is quite possibly the most influential of them all, and the biggest reason that people will at the very least give a new FZero a chance. That reason is Super Smash Bros. Super Smash Bros. Is without a doubt one of the most significant things across the entire gaming world, let alone on Nintendo. Not a single Nintendo Direct goes by where people don't ask for new information about Smash Bros. And on the other side of that coin is the impact that Super Smash Bros. Has on the rest of the gaming world. Fire Emblem only ever came to the West because of the inclusion of Fire Emblem characters in Super Smash Bros. Melee. The inclusion of a character in Super Smash Bros. Is tantamount to the ultimate advertisement you could ever hope for. And when it comes to icons of the Super Smash Bros. Franchise, very few come to mind as quickly as Captain Falcon, who has been iconic ever since the Nintendo 64 with his catchphrase Falcon Punch, Falcon Kick, and Show Ya Moves. He stands as one of the only significant Smash Bros. Characters to have actual normal spoken lines that regularly get quoted by fans all over the world. Captain Falcon is the one who introduced us to Robin and Lucina. Captain Falcon is the one who sat in Min Min's restaurant and ate those noodles. Captain Falcon is the one who killed Olimar's Pikmin and then walked it off like it was no big deal. There is no greater representative for a franchise to come back than Captain Falcon himself, and it is time for Captain Falcon to have his day once again in the sun. Bring back FZero. It's time. Give us an FZero Battle Royale, and above all, show your moves, Nintendo. Show us what you can do and what you can do with this franchise when the genre is ripe for the picking and your game finally has an opportunity to stand on its own 2 feet and be exactly what it always was from the very beginning, a racing battle royale simulator where characters fight to the death to get to the end of the finish line. So there's my answer, Shigeru Miyamoto. You want to know what you can do that you haven't done already? bring the game to the Switch, and make it a hardcore multiplayer battle royale. This is Stanpai. Thanks for listening.
Captain Falcon!